The Wild Wild West.
Guys, this is a tough time for this country, and honestly, I'm sorry I'm so late to releasing an episode this week. But this week was tough for me, man. I had to ask myself some hard questions. I said, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. That assassination attempt, just the country fighting even more, reality just kind of becoming more and more untethered, and people just kind of selecting this and that to be real over other things. And I didn't want to talk politics. It's like almost, I guess it's expected to like weigh in on this whole situation. And I honestly tried. I talked for 45 minutes about the whole thing. And it just sucked because my heart wasn't in it. Between us, what I really wanted to talk about this week is dicks. I wanted to talk dicks, and I was like, is this really the right time? Like, I don't want to be irreverent towards the American political system, but I'm like, who am I to just talk dicks for 2 hours straight? Like, for real, I'm talking for real, just dick talking. You'll see what I'm talking about. But I decided to go with my gut, and I said America needs to know, how to increase flaccid length, flaccid girth, obviously erect length and girth, and just kind of getting as hard as you possibly can. What are some of the things we can do for that? And so I brought on an expert. So what's going on with, we're going to jump in to a sliver of the thing that I was doing after I got done talking about all of the assassination business, which really, it was just boring. I bored myself while talking about it. I did. It's not my lane. It's not my thing. Maybe one day, if you guys are like, oh, I want to see it, maybe I'll put it on Patreon. Maybe I'll just fucking release it. It sucks. It for real sucks. Like, I'm not trying to entice anybody. It blows. It is not good. But I did finally get to talking dicks, and then brought on an expert to kind of ask him some questions, learn. The guy's name is Janus Bifrons, and he created what's known as phallogenesis. And dude, this for real might be the most important interview I'll ever do. It's at obviously a topic that strikes at the real heart. You think your political party is a big deal? Dude, what if I told you you could get fatter? And you'll see as he explains, a lot of us could be girth monsters if we maybe just kept an open mind and heart to a pretty holistic approach for making your bird the best it could be. That's all I'm saying. This is the stuff we need to be talking about as a country. I know we're divided, but let's come together on this issue. Let's get harder, bigger birds, dude. All of us, for every man. That's what I'm talking about. Let's jump right in to the thing, and then you'll see. All right. Thank you, guys. That all brings me to the real thing I wanted to talk about. And that is, man, if you're still listening, God bless your little fucking heart. I recently obviously we broke down the political situation. I gave you some bad news to hopefully you can feel better at, the poor lady's expense. She eventually escapes from the brothel, so don't feel too bad. But I figured out how to increase flaccid size. I really have. Dude, I'm not bragging. I'm not want to be like, yeah, dude, my fucking dick's so fucking big. I'm teenest up most of the time. But the weather in Texas here is hot. I think it's absolutely a factor. My flaccid state has been, bro, it's been for real taking me aback. Even when I'm in the AC in my house. I know obviously everyone gets during the dog days of summer, you do get kind of a bit of heat dick, which, everyone's always welcoming. But dude, I've been for real, going to take a piss and being yo, bro, my flaccid state. And here, this is my theory. And this is the only thing that's changed is I'm crushing water, dude. I'm hitting a gallon a day. I'm not bragging. I have the Mountain Valley 5-gallon glass container water coolers. So stoked. But I've been crushing a gallon of water a day. And I think my theory for flaccid gains. I swear to God, flaccid gains is a dragon I've been chasing. I don't even care about my boner, dude. It is what it is. My boner is but a tool for the creation of life. My flaccid state is when I'm more kind of, that's my thing that's the dragon I'm really chasing. And I've learned if you want to increase your flaccid state, hydration and mindset. It's those two things. If you're kind of nervous or squirrely, your dong will shrink up. You will if you're like, if you can take a deep breath, confidence mode, and you're well hydrated, dude, I swear by this. My flaccid state has been like put it this way. If someone snapped a photo of it, I'd be like, yeah, send it up. That's all I'm saying. It's nothing impressive or anything. People are like, holy fuck. But it's absolutely serviceable. And honestly, I feel like if like the last couple bathroom breaks I've taken, if I had to take that, my lifetime acting goal is to be an extra on HBO and show my penis. So if I ever get to do that, I have the exact recipe. Obviously, I'm not going to be biggest on the block, but it'll be like if I was on Westworld, like standing around a bunch of robots, and I would be proud of it. Yeah, that's my dick. I'd be proud of it. It is what it is. It would. I was like, yeah, that's me. So and to kind of, I do want to delve into this matter a little further. So I have an expert I'm going to talk to hopefully tonight, and I can kind of just splice this right in here about how to get your dick bigger. Because, if the political world's falling apart and we're all addicted to our phones, we might as well have big ass dicks. So I think that's very important. So hopefully, let's see. Hopefully we're pinging him in right now. Come on, brother. Come on. It took a lot to fucking convince this guy because he was weary. But I said, brother, the dudes need to know how to get bigger hogs. He claims that fapping shrinks your dick. What do you think about that? It's unwelcome news. Let's hear him out. All right, there you go. Dude, all right. Thank you so much for joining. I mean, totally saving the day. I didn't know what I was going to do this week. See, and I'll tell you, I'll start off before I introduce you. I'm going to tell you how we kind of crossed paths. It was really weird. So, and it weirdly enough had to do with that whole mess this week with former President Donald Trump. So that whole thing happened to him, whatever, terrible thing. But it this spilled off of it because I'm sitting there, everyone's just flooding the internet with, hot takes about politics, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what's nobody talking about right now? I said, I'm going to talk about the fact that every time I drink a gallon of water every day, my flaccid state is just the most remarkable. And I was like, nobody's talking dicks right now. So I'm going to fill the void. I'm going to corner the market. I'm going to talk dicks when no one's paying attention. People are doing other stuff. So I jump in, I start talking dicks online. I'm talking about, flaccid state for me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's all hydration and mindset. What would you say about that?
Hydration, mindset for sure. But the other thing which is where my work comes into play, blood vessel growth specifically.
Whoa. And that's okay. So good. So we'll get into all that stuff. But yeah, it was weird enough. So I put this tweet out about that specifically. And it like hit, I think the subreddit, my brother saw it and he was like, yo, check this out. And he was like, check out. And I think you came up somehow through that tweet. You came up in the subreddit as well, what you were doing. He was like, dude, check this out. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. So that's how I came to discover you. And It's Janus Bifrons, correct?
Janus Bifrons. I was going to ask you about your last name too. Like how do I say that last name?
McCusker.
McCusker?
Got it. You nailed it.
Okay.
So Janus, introduce yourself. What do you do? I think you were just starting to explain it to me. It sounds fascinating. So what do you do? And I'm glad you agree about my flaccid size theory because it is, I swear to God, it's hydration. And it is mindset. If you're walking around here nervous, dude, you're going to shrimp up.
Yeah, you're gonna shrimp up pretty fast. So I got my start in I guess I'll wind it way the fuck back. I got fascinated with like blood vessels after I got out of bodybuilding when I was in my very, very uh, like early childhood, like teens and stuff like that. I'd gotten really heavy into the bodybuilding scene. Um, Blew up on steroids, like got just huge, and
Sweet.
ended up having a pretty bad episode where I'd grown too fast and my skin came apart, and I didn't notice until I got in the shower and like bled out and smacked my head in like a shower alcove and shit like that.
Whoa, can I stop you there? How do you do that? Is that can happen?
Yeah, yeah. If you if you grow too fast from taking steroids, your skin will come apart. Like it, you're growing at a super physiological rate. Your skin can't keep up depending on your cycle. Like bad shit can
Damn.
happen.
So
Yeah.
you were
So
fucking jacked.
yeah. I was 276 pounds, single digit body fat. I'm 5'9", so I mean,
Damn, dude.
yeah, it was
Okay.
it was up there.
And that started the blood vessel. That started your fascination with blood vessels.
Well, yeah, because what basically happened after that is I had to go to the doctors because I ended up getting an infection in that particular skin tear. It was in my groin, and my doctor just looked at me and was like, "You can't keep doing bodybuilding. Your skin tears are getting too out of control. You keep this up, you're going to end up with like a deep muscle infection. You could be, it could kill you." And tried to stay in it, and it was just, it's kind of like for whom the bell tolls kind of thing. I knew it was done.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the body. I love the human body. I loved everything about it. And I was like, I don't want this passion for bodybuilding to die just because I can't pursue it the way I want, like what's a way I can pursue the same thing with bodybuilding, but in a direction that nobody else is thinking about. And well, also I heard about smooth muscles and blood vessels and shit like that. I was like, how the fuck do I grow those? How do I grow that? Because everyone else knows how to grow, skeletal muscle. How do I grow my vascular system? And that was tail end of my teens. By the time bodybuilding was done and over for me, I was about 18, 19 years old. And if you're wondering, yes, I was like taking steroids by the time I was like 14 years old. Got it from my mentor and shit. So,
Whoa, damn, that's pretty young, dude. So you were like going through puberty on steroids.
well, I hit puberty super young. So
Okay.
puberty for me was like 11. I I was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
you're
only
right.
like
14 is kind
11,
of young.
12-year old with like 5 o'clock shadow kind of shit. It
Damn.
was
Oh yeah,
awful.
you're right. 14, I guess, would be yeah, it's like that whole area, like 11 through 15, 14. So you hit it and then you just kind of right afterwards smack with some roids.
Yeah, pretty much. Like my mentor had started me on anti-estrogens first, just to try to max out my potential, get me, as big as I possibly could. And then, he and I sat in his front living room one night and was like, do you really want to do this? And I was like, yeah, I really want to do this. And, I prepped my first dose, sat there right
Damn.
there, and we went out and ate at a Chinese buffet, and he was like, you've got one goal, keep up. Because like with bodybuilding, the one thing nobody ever tells you is that it's all eating. Like you can take all the steroids in the world, but if you cannot put down enough food to actually use what you're putting in your body, that steroid, you're not going to grow as fast. So like you'll hear a lot of the big guys talk, it's all eating, but that is not a particular topic. That's a little bit later on, we're on the tail end of all that. We're talking about vascular growth. So yeah. Ask me something about that. Whatever you
Okay,
want to
so
know.
no, this is what no, I want to get the story. So the bodybuilding, it's like I can't do it. You said, all right, obviously I'm trying to like you're just about gains. You're like I was going to get as big as possible. I'm not allowed to do that with like my skeletal muscles anymore. I might as well apply the same thinking to my D if I'm
Right,
following you.
right.
Which
My dick.
by the way, noble quest. This is a very noble quest. So I'm glad, and you started that around 18. I swear to God, dude, 99% of dudes are interested in this topic. Maybe 1% of dudes will talk about it. And I do applaud you for
Oh,
that.
dude, I can relate to that. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anytime someone finds out what I do, if they're at a party, the first thing they're gonna do is they start making fun of me or ridiculing me and shit like that. And I'm always like in the back of my head, like, you're gonna be talking to me at the end of the night. I know it.
I mean, dude,
Such
there's
a gun.
yeah, it's one of the it's such a weak flex to be like, I don't even care about that. It's like, dude, get the fuck out of here, man. Yes, you
Right.
do. And it's like, dude, it's like you could be a billionaire and you could be like, yo, I figured this out. They'd be like, they would fully set you up with the Tony Stark laboratory. Like, dude, do your thing, please.
Right, right.
So you
Yeah.
say, yeah, dude, no shame in the game. I've been talking about this stuff forever. I'm all about it, dude. I think, and it's so I got into this because of and I do a comedy podcast. So I always try to find it. There was funny aspects of it, obviously, but I got into the movement of like dudes who are circumcised, and there used to be this company. I don't know if you ever heard of it called Manhood Canada, where they basically put like a sleeve on you where you can kind of regain your sensitivity.
Oh yeah. It's foreskin restoration, right? That's
Yes.
what you're talking
Yes.
about.
So I kind of like started fucking around with that. And it kind of fits perfectly for a comedy podcast because it is funny. I was walking around with like basically like a Velcro sleeve on my dick all day. And it's delightful. It's funny to hear about. It's kind of fascinating. So yeah, so don't at all. If people want to try to hate, it's like, bro, stay in your lane. And it's like strong guys. Like there's no dude, like the strongest dude, like if you're thinking about like MMA, jiu-jitsu, they're not walking around trying to flex. It's always a dude who's not the strongest. So if you're walking around being like, I don't even care about this dick growing talk, like you said, it's like, bro, I'll see you later. Guarantee you'll
Right.
be hitting me up in a minute. So go on. So
Yeah.
how did you start to study it? Like I would have like where would you start with this?
So that's a really good question. So I mean, I'm just gonna try. What I'm gonna do for you here is I'm just gonna give you as much content as you're willing to get, and you can kind of like parse it, snip it, do what you want. So here we go. Obviously, same thing. I'm like, well, I mean, at that point in time, I knew enough about the body because I was like, well, I mean, the male member, and that's how I prefer to say to it because like I hate
Male
the
member.
peanut. Male members. So what's male member made out of? Well, it's made out of, like fascia and smooth muscle. So I was like, well, I mean, so if I can't be like the biggest dude in the room, I'm gonna be like the biggest dude in the room. It's
Heard that.
it's kind of what it does, right?
Let's
It's
go.
like
Let's go.
right, like if I can't swing hammer, I'm slinging hammer. It's one of those. So I was like, let's do that.
Let's fucking go. What
Yeah,
else is smooth muscle in your body? What else is
that good question. Basically, all of your blood vessels. Your bones start out as that, which is something I'll get into later.
whoa?
Like dude, it's a really, I, I got way more than I bargained for the deeper down this road I got. Like there's certain aspects of it that even now, even years down the road, that just blows my mind, just blows my mind. So I'll get into the start of it and then we'll start to get in the heart of it. And I'm just gonna like,
Do your thing, man. I got plenty of time.
all right. So of course I started out on all of the usual forums like Thunder's Place, PE Gym, tried Matters of Size, some of the smaller ones, just trying to learn about exercises in general, just trying to get a beat on it. And I did that for pretty much, well, kind of like I said, kind of like the tail end of my teens, start of my early 20s. And, on top of that, behind all of this during the bodybuilding days, I'm just doing everything I can to just learn about the body in general. So I'm just kind of adding to it, learning more about smooth muscles, learning more about the sexual organs. What I discovered, and it's painful to say this, it's really painful to say this, like, and you'll understand why it's painful. It all just sucked. It was just all so horrible, so horribly damaging, so horribly flawed, poorly thought out.
Mhm.
Like
So like jelking.
stretching.
Sorry to cut you off. Like jelking, you're saying?
Yeah, okay, like pretty much all of it, and I can give you a breakdown of all that. But we'll start with jelking since you're bringing that up. So with jelking actually has an incredibly rich history. So what jelking was originally intended to do was it was a form of mock battle. So like whenever a guy is entering a woman, the vagina kind of closes in and it pushes the blood in the cavernosal bodies, like kind of sucks it through the arterial channels that are deep and then pushes it out the venous channel. And what'll happen a lot of times is whenever a guy's, like really in the throes of it, kind of going to pound town, he has a really hard time maintaining an erection because well, I mean, they didn't really know this way back when, and I'm talking like centuries and centuries and
Mhm.
centuries ago. They didn't really know that it was a case of, arterial insufficiency. So what they did is with jelking, so what we know of it today, it's from base to glands, but it got misinterpreted because this starts in like way out in like the Middle East, like the Far East and shit, all right? It was supposed to be from glands to base. It was supposed to be like a mock battle. It was supposed to mimic penetration. That's what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to prepare
Oh.
you for that.
And people are milking themselves like an udder, basically, going the reverse
Pretty much.
way.
Yeah, it just got misinterpreted. Now, at the time, whenever I discovered jelking, I did not know any of this shit. So of course I'm doing it from base to glands, and what's of course happening is I'm getting varicose veins. I'm blowing out my veins.
Damn.
That's what jelking will, the jelking that we know of today, it causes varicose veins. It destroys the vascular pathways that basically help support and help the male member work.
Hmm.
It's yeah, and so tried jelking, got a lot of varicose veins from it, got worsening potency, did not get any size from it. Then I was like, okay, so jelking's not that great. Gave that a try. So let's try stretching. Let's see how that goes. Did stretching for a long time, and I ended up with what I've basically referred to as you can almost call it like separation. So you've got the corporate cavernosal bodies, which are deep, and then over top those you've got the tunica albuginea, and then over top that you've got a layer of veins, and then over top of that you've got the bucks fascia, and then you've got a couple other structures that exist then underneath the Coles fascia. So basically, whenever you do a pulling exercise, all right, like most pulling exercises, you're taking your hand, you're forming a circle, you're wrapping it around your glands, and then you're pulling up. That's what most stretch exercises, stretch devices. They're either a suction cup or there's some sort of a compression band that goes right underneath the glands and it's pulling on that. Well, what that will cause is it it affects the more superficial structures, but it doesn't really affect the deeper structures like the actual cavernous bodies. So what'll happen is that Buck's fascia that exists over top that venous layer, which is over top the tunica albuginea, it'll stretch out.
Mhm.
And so you start to get this bizarre wiggle at the top of your member to where your glands will actually kind of be slopping about on the top of your,
What?
yes, yes. A lot of guys don't know this, but until I actually take the time to explain this to a lot of guys, or like I have no idea what this is, they just think like, oh, my glands are supposed to slip to the left and the right so incredibly easily. But no, that's not the case. What's basically happened is has have they elongated the tissue? Technically, yes, they've elongated the bucks fascia, but when they do that, you end up with a hemodynamically, or rather a hydraulically compromised member. So if you have separation between the bucks and then that underlying venous layer and the tunica albuginea, you actually have a very difficult time keeping an erection. So what you'll see a lot, and this is something that'll tie into something I'm sure you've seen, compression bands, like cock rings, like guys will have to wear cock rings, right?
Oh yeah.
They have to wear a cock ring because their member is hydraulically compromised. It doesn't work right anymore. So they have to wear cock rings in order to actually get hard because there's that layer separation.
And is that the only way that can happen from the stretching, or can that just be normal wear and tear?
To some extent, that's a really good question. That's a great question. It can actually happen with normal wear and tear. That's something that I see with guys that have erectile dysfunction, which is kind of where my work ties in later. So from doing jelking, from doing stretching, and so from the jelking and the stretching, and then I also did pumping, which is again the same set of problems. It tends to work the tissue superficially, but not really deep. Although there are some ways around that, which is actually something I have up on my Reddit, but I'll explain that later. So I tried, let's see, jelking, stretching, pumping, extending. Tried injections. By the way, needles near your dick, that's really scary. Like,
Was that
don't do it.
Botox? Was that like Botox injections?
Not Botox. I was doing Trimix. I was getting Trimix from this place called All Day Chemists, which is basically like this
Oh,
fly-by-night drug company out in the
dude,
middle of the sea.
just let me stop you. Your ability to take these experiments to the next level is for real commendable. Like I tried jelking many moons ago and I just got scared. I was like, bro, I'm not, it would like freaked me out. But like the fact that you went all the way on all these things is admirable. So, again, it honestly is one of the most noble quests. So no
Well,
needles, that doesn't work.
yeah, well, okay, so like, so the injections actually work really well.
No.
They were nice. The injections were nice. But at the same time, oh my God, you think you've ever been hard in your life? Oh, dude, just give it up. The
Really?
injections are nice, but there's a real risk of infection. There's a real risk of scar tissue. There's a real risk of fucking up the dose and having, a medically induced priapism that could not go down. Like, dude, you got to look up videos of how they drain a priapism. Like they take this large gauge needle, right? And they shove it through your glands and then they penetrate the cavernosal bodies and then they suck the blood out. Sometimes they don't even do that. Sometimes they just take a scalpel and just run it through there and just squirt
Oh,
it out like a pimple.
oh my God. Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. You do not want to
Oh,
pry. And that was what scared me. I was like, this is like, I mean, it's okay right now, but when's the day going to come that it's not going to be okay? And someone's going to take a scalpel and be like, Bob's your uncle. Like, I
oh,
didn't, yeah, I didn't want that.
oh my God. I didn't know that.
Right.
And so what's the difference between this stuff and what you gonna call it? Botox.
Okay, so what Botox will do, Botox will basically it'll basically cause your muscles to be unable to contract.
Mhm.
They won't work properly, which will effectively it will cause an erection because it interferes with your muscles' ability to contract.
Ah, I see. I see. I see.
Yeah. So I mean, like, like rich white women, they're like, oh, I've got wrinkles in my face. Let me just shove a needle here, and their muscles, they can't
Mhm.
work anymore. So no wrinkles,
Yeah.
same principle. Um, so yeah, did the injections. I never went so far as to inject like silicone into there. Like I've so doing this job, you see some things that are just like way out there. I mean, like way, 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 way so far left field. You'd like, let me put it
Silicone's
like this.
intense. Silicone's intense. It's like a breast implant, basically.
It pretty much okay. So like what these guys will do is they'll inject silicone into the corporeal bodies. And I saw a picture of this one dude. It looked like he didn't even have it didn't even look like a tube anymore. It just looked like a basketball. He just had a basketball. He had injected so much silicone. He couldn't even pee properly. He had to shove a sounding rod down his urethra in order to pee because there was so much pressure on his urethra from all the silicone. He just couldn't do it.
Oh my
It like
God.
it was fetish taken just a whole next level, or like other crazy stuff is penile bifurcation. You ever heard about that?
You split
It's
it,
where a
right?
guy yeah, it's where a guy literally sits there and takes a razor blade over several months and just splits the chambers apart. Like it
Why,
looks like
dude?
some sort of like death flower.
Why does
Like,
is it fold out or something? Like, what does it do?
yeah, it like folds out, like looks like it almost looks like something from like Alien versus Predator. It's
Oh,
gross.
no
It's so
thanks.
gross.
No thanks.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of those like I'm glad I know about this, but that's like brain cancer and that keeps me up at night. Did I really need to know this?
Oh,
Um yeah, so weird stuff. But anyway, so after I do these injections, I'm like, okay, I can't really keep doing this. So what are some other things that I can try? What are some other things that I can do? Again, all day chemist. I start ordering in Viagra and Cialis because they were selling it like super cheap. It was like $1.50 for the blues and like three for the reds. I was like, shut up and take my money.
yeah,
Because you walk up to a pharmacy and they're like $20 a tab. I was like,
crazy.
no.
Yeah,
Right. So I get Viagra and Cialis and I start experimenting with those and they're working out pretty damn well. I mean, not quite as well as the injections, but they're doing great. Uh and then and then it all kind of started falling apart one night. So, what a lot of guys do not know about Viagra and Cialis, which personally, it scares me a lot because you've got services like Hims, and I'm not singling out Hims or any of those like kind of email prescription bases, because I think there's a genuine need for like reasonable medication costs for easy access to certain types of drugs. I'm for that. uh Basically, with Viagra specifically, not Cialis is okay, but Viagra specifically, it can cause a form of it can NaOIN. uh I can't remember what that stands for, but basically you end up with a form of nerve damage in your eyes.
what?
So what PDE5 inhibitors, the Viagra specifically, what it'll cause is it will cause the pressure inside of your eyes to go down. And your eyes actually need a certain level of pressure inside of them in order to oxygenate those cells, to oxygenate your nerve cells. So whenever you're taking Viagra, one of the common side effects guys talk about is blue vision. You ever heard of blue vision?
No.
You you basically end up with blue after images. Now, at the beginning, those blue after images, they're not so bad. You barely notice them, but that's why they're so insidious. That blue showing up is actually your body trying to tell you that your nerves aren't getting enough oxygen, that the nerves in your eyes are actually dying.
Dude, so you for real, like, you literally, it starts to look like Avatar. Everything starts looking blue.
Yeah, like anytime you like look away from like, well, okay, so you make a good point though. So basically, like, say you're looking at something and then you look away, you end up with this like super rich, ultra dark blue after image that makes it almost impossible
Oh,
to see
oh,
what the fuck
I
you're
see. I
doing.
see what you're saying. No, I know what you mean. So you look at a thing, you look away, and there's still like almost like caught in frame in your eyes, the thing you were just looked at, but just like blue.
Yeah, a very dark blue.
That's
And
crazy.
it just proceeded to get worse and worse to the point to where I, to this day I'm still night blind. I have a very hard time seeing at night because of it.
Damn.
And I found out after I stopped it and I flushed all the drugs that it was they first started noticing it over in the United Kingdom. I do a lot of business in the United Kingdom for whatever reason. I think maybe it's something in their water. I think they need to have better water treatments. Me and a couple of guys actually traced a chemical leakage from one of the factories. Because I had a bunch of customers along this one river, and I was like, "This is fucking weird. Why is it all along this one river?"
What? In the UK?
Yeah, yeah. It was in the United Kingdom. It was basically a factory that was not handling their toxic waste properly, and they were dumping it into the river and was ending up in the water supply, and it was causing some pretty bad vascular side effects. That
Damn.
this was like a year and a half into starting the forum that I started kind of tracking this shit. I was like, this is kind of fucking weird. What the hell's going on here? And me and me and some guys in that particular area of the country started tracking this shit, and we nailed it down to that. Um,
That's crazy.
yeah, like I said, I mean, I talk to guys like I talk to guys all over the world. The craziest conversation I ever had was on the plains of Mongolia, and this dude was like jumping up and down in his jeep trying to keep signal on his sat nav. Like, just like, hold on, wait a minute, sticking his phone higher up in the air. Like I've had some cool conversations because of this work. I've met so many cool, kind of like you. I've met so many cool people. So
Yeah, yeah. That's all. And it is one of those things. It's the same thing. When people find out what you do, they go, wait, what? And it's like a charged subject. People either say, oh, you think you're funny or whatever. For you, it's like, oh yeah, I don't need that. It's like, all right, bro, bust it out right now.
right,
Put
right,
it on the
yeah,
table, Holmes.
you
Let's
know,
go. So you tried all the different types, all the different things. So where did that
yeah.
ultimately take you? What did it all culminate in?
It all culminated in severe erectile dysfunction. Severe erectile dysfunction. I was I couldn't keep it up. Period. On the story. Like I would have at that particular time in my life. I wished I was a two pump chump. I couldn't even keep it hard enough to be a two pump chump. It was
Yeah. And how old
it
were
was
you
just,
then?
I was like mid 20s.
Damn. All
So I
right.
mean, I'm a decently young guy. I shouldn't be having these problems. And I was like, one night, one night I was just kind of sitting on my computer, and I was like, you know what? I don't even want to try to get big anymore. I don't want to try to pursue this anymore. I just want to return to what I used to be. I just want to be able to get it up enough to be, with a girl so I can be that two pump chump. Like, I don't know how much I can cuss on. Can I cuss on YouTube? Is
Yeah,
that
you can
cool?
say whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, fuck all with this size shit. I just want to be able to actually have sex again.
Yeah.
So that's how I started looking into this. So I was like, instead of trying to grow the male member, let's just try to figure out how I can get it back to functional. So I started studying blood vessels very, very intensely. And I mean, I've been studying them intensely for quite a long period of time, but it was the switch in my head from trying to make myself bigger to just making myself functional that seemed to open up all the right doors.
So
And
you
it
took
was
like a
around,
holistic, sorry to cut, you took like a holistic approach rather than like, you know, just like I'm gonna grow this at the expense of everything. You took like a holistic, that's what it
I
sounds like.
took, yeah, I took a holistic approach. And one of the first things I'd come across on this lovely, lovely, lovely website called Library Genesis. It's like the Library of Alexandria of the internet. Like any book you could possibly think of, it's probably on there, like hundreds of millions of texts. But
Damn.
you got to have, a VPN to get to it. But
Gotcha.
I'd come across this book while I was searching on Library Genesis. It had been outdated and out of print for a long ass time. It was in German. It's called Wandergries something or other. I can't remember. But basically, it was about the guy who had discovered the Bayliss effect and uh, William Maddox Bayliss, I think is his full name, and he was like Sir William because I think he got knighted or something like that. Anyway, read his book on the Bayliss effect, and it basically talked about how smooth muscles are involuntary. So, so whenever a smooth muscle is suddenly distended, it has these channels on the outside of its cell that will open and close based on distension. So say you've got a cell and it goes like this, it suddenly stretches, smooth muscle, and it suddenly stretches. You've got these ion gates on the outside of the cell that will open up and will selectively filter in like things like magnesium and calcium. And whenever that calcium comes into contact with these receptors inside of it, it's like this giant electrical storm inside the cell. You actually, when you look at it under a microscope and something else, I can't remember the name of it, you see like this aura around the cell. It's like static electricity from like a blanket or some shit around the cell. And that's the calcium ions like getting sucked in and then
What?
creating static. Oh yeah, it's trippy as hell. And nitric oxide is involved in the process. Like you need nitric oxide to make it work. They're like I've mentioned on YouTube, smooth muscles are like little living engines. They're like little living engines. They're one of the things that keep you alive. They're just little autonomous engines that can stack and work together like Legos or something. They're
Dude,
amazing.
it's crazy. I actually was thinking about it this morning in the shower. I'm like, the fact that I have who knows how many cells in my body all working harmoniously blows my mind on a pretty daily basis. It's like, dude, how are these things all working together? It's crazy. So you're
It,
saying
and,
it's
and
that's nuts. So the various little, like you're saying, chambers or like component that are they like the building blocks of the smooth muscle? These little kind of like you're saying, these little engines that kind of whoosh, expand based on like some sort of electrical signal, fill in with the appropriate, calcium, magnesium, blah blah blah, nitric
oh,
oxide. I remember NO Explode. I took it a couple times working out.
okay, yeah. Smooth muscles are basically the building blocks of the vascular system. They're well, I'd call smooth muscles more like the structural support of the vascular system. But
Yeah.
we'll tie that in. We'll tie that in later. So got done pretty much well digging through that book using Google Translate, which by the way is horrible because you could only do like a page, like you could only do like three-quarters of a page, and this is like a several hundred page book.
Oh,
I basically just I pretty much will Google translated which chapters I actually wanted to read. And then I would sit there and like slowly, begrudgingly work my way through this book, and it's not translating all that great. Like Google translates great, but some languages it's a little iffy.
yeah, yeah.
Especially what I like to call it the dark triangle, which is like Cyrillic languages, not so great. But so I dug through that book and I was like, okay, I've got a much better idea of what's going on here. Let's go on to Google Scholar and see what other stuff we can find. And that's when I started learning more about smooth muscles and endothelial cells and how those two relate. And then I would go back to Library Genesis to try and find some other manuals on that particular topic. And then I pretty much took that as far as I could. And I was like, I need to get a hold of much more up to date stuff. And basically, with the money I was making from, doing odd jobs and stuff like personal training, did that for a while. I was pretty much full throwing it at like research hubs like Elsevier and GitHub. And Elsevier is the only one that's really coming to mind right now that expensive. But I was
Yeah,
pretty much full.
those things are super expensive. Usually schools like subsidize those because they're just
Yeah,
they're a lot of money.
like no bullshit. I actually went to college just so I could get a hold of the research manual. I got a
Nice.
degree in sociology, but I mean, I went to college just so I could access to the free shit. I was like, bring
Awesome
it.
move.
Let's
Great
go.
idea. It's probably cheaper, honestly.
It was genuinely cheaper because like a 24 to 48 hour window, a 24 to 48 hour window of renting, I could set you back like two, $300, man. So like
Crazy.
if you Yeah, so if you're like digging into like, a pretty complicated topic and like the new up-to-date stuff, your your piggy bank might start out, fat and fluffy. It ain't gonna stay that way. It's gonna look like sad and deflated, and it's just not good. Not
That's a
good.
beast. That's an absolutely beast move.
Yeah, so I went to college. I had gone pre-med initially, but some family complications had gotten in the way, and that I had to drop out of the pre-med program I was at another college. And I had ended up having to roll all that into a sociology degree, which at the time I was just like so upset about. But I kept with the self-study, abused the research hubs that they had access to and stuff, and kept the ball rolling. And that was when I started learning about a phrase that I'd never really heard before. I'd never heard before this particular time in my life. That switch I was talking about, from going from trying to get myself bigger to going to how you mentioned the holistic approach, and that was the term arteriogenesis. And that's where it all started. Like everything was kind of like a steady climb in terms of my knowledge, but the moment I learned about arteriogenesis, it was just like a
Man,
rocket. It was just a rocket. So with arteriogenesis, it is it got its start in like the 1940s, 1950s. And before that, they had like really tenuous amounts of knowledge, like kind of scant knowledge about it with like deer antlers. So what some of these like burgeoning researchers and scientists would do is they would they pretty much will butcher the heads of these deer that were still alive. They'd like sit in there and go inside their skull and stuff, and like cut off like certain blood vessels and stuff to see if it would affect how their antlers would grow. Yeah.
Jesus.
And they'd find like one antler would grow a little bit more than the other, and they're like, oh, okay, so like cutting this blood vessel actually causes something, and then they'd come back to that deer, a year later, whenever the antlers had fallen off or something like that, and look at it again. It's like, oh, hey, those blood vessels have grown back, or it's like these antlers are growing at the same rate again. And that was like 1800s. So it really got its start, 1940s, 1950s, and then by the 1960s, they were gaining a lot of traction. Uh, they it was they were looking for alternative means of therapy for people that were having heart disease.
Mhm.
How they could get these working class people back up to snuff, back up to speed, without having to send them to these expensive clinics or having to prescribe them medication, which back then had all kinds of egregious side effects. They needed something better, so they had pretty much just started putting people on treadmills, like getting, working, doing aerobic exercise and stuff like that. And what they were discovering was that aerobic exercise was effectively causing blood vessels to grow. And by this point in time, they really didn't know about it. They had some ideas about it, but they didn't really know it. 1940s, 1950s, this is a totally new concept that aerobic exercise could cause blood vessels to grow. And there was there was a schism. There was this great schism that happened in the medical industry around this time, around this particular topic. Some researchers were saying, it's hypoxia. It's the lack of oxygen to tissues that are causing these blood vessels to grow. And then a much it was a much smaller voice, a much smaller grouping of researchers that was like, well, hold on, what if it's not hypoxia? What if it's actually blood flow itself that's causing blood vessels to grow? What if it's the change in the rate of blood flow? And their hypothesis was that it wasn't hypoxia, it was actually the friction of blood against the vascular walls that was causing this.
Oh, Jesus. All right. But that's new.
Yeah, yeah.
It was making like new capillaries and all that stuff. It was just expanding arteries.
Well, it was doing both. So it was making the existing vascular system larger, and it was making the walls thicker, but it was also causing capillary beds to form, new capillary beds.
That's
It was
crazy.
causing tissue growth. It was causing actual tissue growth, and they were so divided on what was causing that. Well, you know, fast forward, it's modern times. It's like 2000, 2010 plus, several decades later,
Hmm.
I'm coming into the scene learning about this, and I get to see this historical, process play out. Even now, going on to like, research hubs, you're going to see more stuff about hypoxia causing vascular growth than you will shear stress, which is what that was, that blood friction, that the speed, the rate of blood flow through a channel causes irritation and causes friction against that vascular wall. That's what's known as shear stress.
And that's
And
hypoxia. That's hypoxia, you're saying?
so the friction of blood flow against the vascular wall, that's called shear stress.
Okay.
And whenever you're like exercising super duper hard and you like run out of steam, it's like no matter how much you want to go, it's like you can't lift that weight again. You can't run and walk another step. You're like just dead tired. That would be an example of hypoxia.
Gotcha.
Uh, and blood vessels can grow from hypoxia, which is kind of how that schism happened, because
Right.
they already had research on the topic that hypoxia could cause vascular growth. The problem is that it's a panic reaction. It's more of a panic reaction uh, than it is a go-to for vascular growth. Whenever, uh, whenever oxygen content in a particular area of the body starts to drop, uh, the half-lives of certain growth factors goes up because they're reacting to oxygen, which makes their half-life go down. When you have a low oxygen environment, the half-lives of these growth factors extends quite a bit. Like a great example would be like VEGF. If you're exposing VEGF to oxygen, an oxygen-rich environment, healthy tissues, it's got a half-life of like 2 to 3 hours. But in a low oxygen environment, it's like 8+ hours. So they were not wrong in their assumptions. They were not The research they were doing around that time wasn't wrong, but it just wasn't the body's main go-to for
Makes sense.
causing vascular growth.
It wasn't the
Yeah.
best way too. Like functionally, it's like, well, yeah, if you're like redlining your body for arterial to grow your arteries and stuff, it's probably not the best move.
Right, right. It's not the best move. It's not the body's main go-to. Shear stress was, but so anyway, with arteriogenesis, this idea of blood friction causing vascular growth, what is involved in that, and I'll go ahead and break down arteriogenesis as much as I can, and then we're going to use that as a stepping stone for kind of what I'm doing now today. So, whenever you have someone engaging in aerobic exercise, you've got blood that is moving through the vascular channels faster than normal. Now, the first reaction to your body to this blood friction, to the shear stress, is an increase in nitric oxide from your endothelial cells. Your endothelial cells have these little hairs. It's almost like grass. Like, you ever seen like a wide open field and you saw a breeze roll through and you watch the grass like blow and wave?
Mm-hmm.
Endothelial cells have the exact same thing. The endothelial cells line your blood vessels, and off of those endothelial cells it's like grass almost. It's these little hairy protrusions. And whenever they get tilted so much by blood flow going through a channel at a certain rate, it causes an activation of these internal mechanisms inside the endothelial cells that causes them to release nitric oxide, and the vascular channel widens. And a lot of guys know this is like, getting the vasal pump, getting the muscle pump, it's like raw, it's like, check out my pump right now, that most guys know it as that. The other is, say with aerobic exercise, I'm sure you've done some treadmill work and you're looking down and your veins are really sticking out. You're like, man, I feel like I got like a roadmap going on. This feels great.
Yeah, yeah.
That right. So that would be an example of the nitric oxide release. But now say you up the rate of blood flow even more, past a point to where the nitric oxide release isn't enough to really pull back the shear stress on that arterial wall. And we're going to start in arteries first here. So let's say the blood passing through that arterial channel, you've already released nitric oxide, you've already widened it, but the level of shear stress on those endothelial cells, it's still too great. What does the body do then? The endothelial cells then begin to release a growth factor called vascular endothelial growth factor, specifically vascular endothelial growth factor subtype BB. Whenever VEGF gets released, it releases from the endothelial cells and it kind of becomes like this cloud in the vascular channel, and it causes an increase in dilation, both ascending and descending. It causes like this domino ripple effect. And you get that from basically prolonged aerobic exercise. Like you get the nitric oxide release, say in a general workout, within the first 5 to 10 minutes. But say you continue that aerobic exercise for another 30 to 45 minutes, and you cap out in like a 45-minute session. Within the first 5 to 10 minutes, nitric oxide's already done its work. Now your body's beginning to release VEGF to cause not just a greater level of vasodilation, but to also begin to supercompensate. Just like in bodybuilding, you know how like if you max out your muscles and you're kind of like breaking them down a little bit, your body's basically setting the stage for super compensation for your blood vessels to grow. So that way, if it ever comes across that level of shear stress again, the blood vessels are wider, they're thicker, they can work so much better. So that way you can engage in that level of aerobic exercise again. Think about it, think about how humanity would have made it this far if we couldn't, outrun the things that were trying to eat us, like lions and tigers and shit like that. Imagine if, like those little
Yeah.
wubbaboos way back in the jungle was like, oh, I can only run so fast, I can't get away. You're fucked. You're just dead. So your
Yeah.
your body has to have some way to super compensate, some way to adapt to that kind of a stimulus, that kind of a potentially life-threatening situation. So it releases VEGF subtype BB, and it's in its name, vascular endothelial growth factor. What it will cause is it will cause your endothelial cells to begin to proliferate, to increase in number. And what they'll start to do is, as they start increasing in number, they start to burrow out into the vascular walls. They start to form these little transient microchannels.
Damn.
Really trippy stuff. Yeah, it's like these little fingers that'll kind of grow out into the extracellular matrix. It's almost like if you looked at your blood vessel, so blood vessels themselves are kind of like a mesh. They're not really a uniform tube, they're more like a mesh. And the endothelial cells will grow through these mesh to form like little hairs that stick out in the extracellular matrix. And they'll begin releasing uh, that VEGF further into those little microchannels, and that process. Say, okay, so tying in bodybuilding,
Sure.
tying in experience, right? Bringing it into the forefront here. So most people are going to recommend, you're exercising, like say you go to the gym, you do a workout. You're going to take like anywhere between 1 to 2 days rest before you work those muscles again. Well, it's kind of like aerobic exercise a little bit, but it's something you have to do all the time. So let's say you run super hard on that treadmill, you kind of push yourself pretty good for those 30 to 45 minutes. Well, I mean, what do you got to do? You got to walk out to your car. You got to walk at work. You got to, walk here, walk there. You got to walk around the store to, go get groceries. You keep, you keep your blood flow up, but you lower the level that you're doing it at. You're not trying to like, punch at the ceiling. You're just trying to maintain, a steady rate here. So you've got your intense workout and then you've got steady state throughout the day. When you combine those two, you're basically helping to maintain those transient channels. And that's why I call them transient.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Right. So these endothelial cells will sell out these little hairy fingers into the ECM, the extracellular matrix, during these intense bouts of exercise, and then your steady state aerobic exercise throughout the day, basically, work, doing your job, you know, walking through the store, stuff like that. And
So
then,
just to stop, this is what I don't know if you ever been to Orange Theory. This is their whole thing. It's like you work out, your heart rate's on a board with all the other people, and then you get splat points every time you're in. I think 85% of your cardiac output. If you're in that zone from 85 to 100, 85 is like orange. If you get to 90, it becomes red. But if you do that for 13 minutes of the hour-long workout, they say they just call it like an afterburn effect, where like you burn hundreds of more calories just because you hit that sustained output for 30. And it sounds like what you're talking about. You get your body to like a red line state, and through your like more steady state activities throughout the day, your body's, like you were saying, just trying to maintain all these little connections you just made. Pretty cool.
right, yeah, your metabolic rate goes up because your body, after that intense workout, it's trying to super compensate. It's trying to adapt to what you've done to it. So of course your metabolic rate is going to go up, and all of this is going to tie in together really, really beautifully. So, so after you've made these little hairs, these little feelers, that's not the end of the process. There's an additional step where shit just gets absolutely crazy. So once you've got these feelers in place, you go to do your next workout after you've done your steady state, just doing, just living your life. When you go to do the subsequent exercise, a day, 2 days later, and you re-expose your vascular channels and these little feelers to additional shear stress, they start releasing a different growth factor. They release what's known as platelet derived growth factor, PDGF. Now, PDGF is pivotal because it is not a growth factor for endothelial cells. It's a growth factor for smooth muscle cells.
Whoa.
And what it will do is it will release PDGF out into these little feelers. And smooth muscles, they're like little living engines, but in this particular case, they're also kind of like bloodhounds sniffing out a blood trail. They're like, I smell growth factor. I smell the thing that's going to make me bigger. I smell my next meal. And so these smooth muscles will start kind of wiggling around, and they'll start breaking down their structural support. So remember how I was saying that smooth muscles are kind of like the structure of a blood vessel? So
Mm.
what smooth muscles will do is once they've kind of gotten themselves cemented into a structure, once they've got themselves in place, they'll begin releasing collagen. They'll start making these collagenous sheaths around themselves to hold them in place, but also to give the structure that they're in more integrity. Well, whenever they start to sense this PDGF, they start to break down that collagen themselves, and then they begin to migrate. They begin to migrate from the outer walls of a vascular system towards the channel, towards the internal channel.
Damn. So that's like more of those deeper structures you're talking about that these other techniques don't really affect.
Well, like I said, we're getting into that. We'll get into
Okay.
that. So you
So
get
what
these
were you
smooth
talking about?
muscles. Huh?
So what did you mean by where are they migrating towards?
Okay, so so say you've got a tube, right? Endothelial cells are existing inside the tube,
Right.
and then smooth muscles are existing in the wall of the tube. So what the smooth muscles will do is they'll start migrating from the walls of that tube more towards the inside, and
Gotcha.
they'll get like right up under these smooth muscles that have migrated. They'll get like right next to those endothelial cells, and these endothelial cells that are, in the main bulk of the channel, they're just pushing out PDGF in just like waves, just big clouds. And these smooth muscles are just bathing in this growth factor, and they're proliferating, they're increasing in number, they're growing because they're being bathed in these growth factors by endothelial cells. And something that we know from studying the cardiovascular system, like people that say that have heart disease, they have this thing called what's that called? Can't internal inward remodeling. So in arteriogenesis, you have outward remodeling. In heart disease, you have inward remodeling. What basically happens is, in the case of heart diseases, you have these smooth muscles migrating inward, and it's causing the channel to temporarily narrow. It's forming what's known as a neointimal layer of smooth muscles just underneath this layer of endothelial cells, because the process of arteriogenesis gets halted because you don't have someone that's engaging in steady state. They're living a sedentary life. They're not engaging regularly enough in aerobic exercise, so they get inward remodeling because the arteriogenic process is being halted. But let's say it's not halted. Let's say you've got somebody that's actually engaging in steady state. You've got somebody engaging in regular aerobic exercise. Once these smooth muscles start to proliferate, they start to form that neointimal layer. Yes, the channel will temporarily narrow, but that's when the true magic starts to happen, when you have somebody who has a healthy lifestyle. Those channels, remember those feelers I was telling you about, those hairs
Mhm.
that poke into the ECM? What they start to do is the endothelial cells on the internal part of the channel, they'll begin to ramp down how much PDGF they produce. And then the little feelers out here will ramp up how much PDGF they're producing to cause these increased amount of smooth muscles to migrate back out into the walls. And then you end up with a channel that begins to widen, but the walls are also thicker. And because you've also maintained those feelers, you have increased capillary bed density as well. You have actual factual structural growth here. You have verifiable growth. You have growth you can actually see. When you like look down a microscope, you can see this channel's bigger. You can see the capillary bed density has gone up. So I was like, coming
That's
from the
crazy.
guy who, yeah, so coming from the guy who has erectile dysfunction, I was like, holy fucking shit, how can I apply this? Like, holy shit, how can I take advantage of this arteriogenesis? And I hit a wall. I hit a big ass wall because there's not many books written about the vascular system of the male member. There's just not. So I
Why?
had to do there's a lot on like the cosmetic end of things, like, say like soldiers that have had like an IED and they have to put like their junk back together.
Right.
There's a lot of surgery manuals, but there's not too many vascular models. But I did eventually find some of the knowledge I needed studying surgical manuals, and then even more kind of studying the philosophy of sex itself.
The best way to learn a language, immersion. Living where the language is spoken and using it every day. But if that's not in the cards this year, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. I honestly might start doing this with Maya. My daughter, for some reason, burns with the passion to learn Spanish. She wants to know everything I say. She's like, well, how do you say that in Spanish? I'm like, bro, I don't fucking know. But I might actually start doing Babbel with my daughter and see. I'll let her do Spanish and see if it works. I think it actually does work. I've studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold. Plus, all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. There you go. Here's a special limited-time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/drenched. Get up to 60% off babbel.com/drenched, spelled Babbel. I don't know why I got all fucking sassy with that. babbel.com/drenched. Rules and restrictions may apply. I did that Boosie, INDEP. Our next sponsor needs no introduction. You've seen the ads. You've heard us talk about it a million times. And I bet there's a big part of you, pun intended, that wants to try it. What am I talking about? Blue Chew. That's right. This isn't your grandpa's blue pill. This is the one. The OG chewable tablet for sex. For better sex, I should say, because you're harder. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. I've heard it works really well. Again, for the time being, I still get hard as fucking hell. But I'm sure these things are everyone I've ever talked to about these says they do steal you up. Obviously, use them responsibly. Blue Chew tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door. The best part? It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead and be ready whenever an opportunity arises. Blue Chew wants you to have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Blue Chew wants the entire country rock hard. They told me that's the mission. They will not stop until every man is bricked up like a brick house, till every tent is pitched, till every road is raised, till every rod is raised. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. That's pretty noble. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code DRENCHED at checkout. Okay. Just pay $5 for shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code DRENCHED to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. We thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. In a world of slot reels and blackjack deals comes the must-play event of the summer from DraftKings Casino, featuring non-stop action and an all-star cast of games, including A-lister Loki's Luck. This summer blockbuster is the one you won't want to miss. Plus, new players can get $100 instantly in casino credits with just $1 wager. And all players get a blockbuster bonus every week. So sign up with the code SECRET and grab your popcorn. It's showtime on DraftKings Casino. Gambling problem? Call 1-800. We're glad you're here. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus. Physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. Eligibility and other restrictions apply. New customers only. $1 wager to earn $100 in non-withdrawable casino credits that expire in 168 hours. Terms at casino.draftkings.com/blockbuster. Hey guys, I have to give you this quick update about my stand-up comedy shows. I'll be in San Jose, I'll be at the San Jose Improv on August 1st through August 3rd. Stand-up live, Phoenix, Arizona, Portland, Oregon, Helium Comedy Club. Philadelphia just added a couple new shows at Helium. Also, the big ones are Capital One, Tyson's Hall, Let's not make a big fool of myself there. It's a big theater. And Town Hall, New York for the New York Comedy Festival. Please get all your tickets at mattmccusker.com/dates. There's other cities up there too. Boston, Wilbur, blah, blah, blah. Cleveland, Providence, all that stuff. Milwaukee, that's all of them actually. So come on out. Bye. Got you.
I kind of became a philosopher of
And
sex without.
I'd like for you to elaborate on that. Also, is this still while you're in school for sociology?
Yeah, I'm doing all
That's
this as I'm doing
that's
sociology.
so wild, dude. And you said, did you
Yeah,
just keep all this stuff to yourself, or were you talking to people about this stuff, or like, how did you?
I'd try to talk to guys about it, but it's kind of like you were saying, you're like, oh, I don't have that problem, it's like, I'll see you later, it was one of
Yeah,
those.
for sure, for sure.
I kind of got encouraged by that along the ways, yeah, I mean, yeah, up close in person, like in the big groups, the guys would push back at me, but it would always be at the tail end of the night, say I was at a party, I'd end up chilling with the boys, and they'd just ask me about it, like, tell me more about this, everyone kind of like relax down, it's like, man, I got to hear more about this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then that encouraged me along the way, and uh, I took
So
advantage of course, things that we have available to us, which is, the synonymous Pornhub. I've as any guy, I'll tell you, like you're gonna spend so many hours of your life on Pornhub. It's just gonna happen.
for
But
sure,
instead of me being the guy, holding my junk in my hand, doing one of these, I'm sitting there with like a pad and paper, like watching, like, okay, so what's this going? What's this doing? And I started watching videos specifically of like I tried to get to the heart of the philosophy of sex in the male member by studying instances where procreation was most likely to happen, how adaptations could be passed on over time, how a structure could form over the centuries, the millennia, based on who is actually getting a chance to procreate. And so I started studying females. Females are basically the ones that are helping guys, propagate themselves, making the next generation of males. So I started studying female sexuality, how females move during a sexual encounter when they are pursuing orgasm. And so I just started watching videos, of like, cowgirl, girl on top type motion, type videos. And yeah, not, it's not, I'm not sitting there with my dick in my hands. I'm sitting there with a notepad and paper in my hands, like, okay, so like what's going on here? And
this
what
is
I
the most
noticed.
impressive part of this, by the way, the fact that you're able to do that.
Yeah, I'm sitting there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was like so tempted to just sit there and beat one out really fast. But I was like, no, no, no. I gotta stay on
I
top of
mean,
it.
unbelievable. And then, so you were studying, you wanted to see, and why did you study that specifically?
I wanted to study it because there was something inside of me. There was this little voice telling me that was where the answer lied. That was where the answer to my problems lied. So I started looking at how females moved in these positions where they're the sexual aggressor when they wanted to go towards orgasm, because uh, without getting too deep into the thicket here, whenever females orgasm, there's a much greater likelihood of procreation actually happening, of the semen actually making it to where it needs to go, get to the egg, baby happens. So I was like, how are these females moving? And it was like this undulation, the way that they would move whenever they were pursuing orgasm. It was the way that they would tilt their hips coming down, going up. They would tilt back whenever they were squatting down on the guy, and then they would tilt towards the guy, like towards his head, whenever they were rising up. And I was like, what the fuck is that? What are you doing? What kind of like primordial dance are you doing right now that it's like, I know the answer is there. What the fuck is that? And so I was like, I gotta dig into these research manuals more. I gotta figure out what the fuck's going on here. So I started looking at pelvic anatomy, at the blood vessels in a male's pelvis. And what I figured out was that the male member was supplied off the aortic forks that go down into your legs. So you've got the main aortic trunk, right? And then you've got these forks that go down into your legs. Well, in the pelvis, you've got these other ones that are called the iliac arteries. They're like these little offshoots. Well, actually, they're pretty large offshoots that feed, the tissue masses in your pelvic girdle. And then off of the iliacs, you've got the internal iliacs. Now, the internal iliacs, that's where the story gets interesting, because the internal iliacs are the ones that feed the male member. And it's got three branches that come off of it, three of them. And you've got an internal iliac on each fork, so they're a mirror of each other. So you've got three forks on either side of this iliac. You've got the bulbourethral artery, which feeds your corpus spongiosum. You've got the deep cavernous artery that feeds the main cavernosum, and then you've got the third one, which is the deep dorsal artery. And as you use the methodology to come up with, you can actually see that deep dorsal artery get so fat it's like ropes on the side of your dick, man. It's just fucking cool. It's
What?
like it's like ropes, and you can actually use that to track deeper internal growth of the vascular structures. But again, we got to get into the whole hemodynamic thing here.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
said,
yeah.
I'm
Please.
I'm, I'm gonna give you as much details and stuff you want to work with. So I got looking at like what are so we've got females that are engaging in like this primordial dance whenever they're pursuing orgasm. And I know that orgasm, whenever that happens, you've got a much higher chance of procreation. So females have been causing male sexual structures to adapt to this dance over time in order to work. Because like, say that girl, that woman, she's sitting there doing her dance, doing her thing, and your dick's going soft. Make babies,
Yeah.
procreate, have kids. So
Yeah.
like the guys that have these structures in place that kind of match up with this dance, those genes are being passed on. They're being adapted. They're growing. They're improving in their efficiency. So I knew that somewhere in my genetics right now, through however many centuries or millennia of evolution, have adapted to this dance. So I was like, so the female is pulling her pelvis towards me. Like, say, you got a girl riding on top, her pelvis is pulling towards me. It's her vaginal wall is dragging on that spongiosum. Now, where's that blood going? It's getting pushed up into the glands. Now, where the fuck is it going from there? Where is it going? It's going out your deep dorsal vein that rides along the very middle of your cavernosal chambers. So you've got like the chambers are kind of oval shaped, and then in this groove between the two chambers, you got the deep dorsal vein. So it's going through the spongiosum into the glands, and then it's exiting through the deep dorsal vein. And I was like, all right, I'm close. I know I'm close to the answer here. So I was like, how can I mimic these motions? How can I mimic this primordial dance I'm seeing women engage in? And I just tried to come up with different hand exercises, and most of them are failing until I started coming up with what I've got on my subreddit now, which are the Angion methods. The first thing I started doing is I started rubbing the deep dorsal vein. I started trying to pull blood through that vascular circuit, what I refer to as the bulbodorsal circuit. Bulbourethral arteries feeding up through the spongiosum. Bulbodorsal circuit. That didn't work out so well. Stimulating just the veins, what I found out is they would collapse because of how they're designed. Once you try to pull blood through them, they'll just kind of collapse on you. They don't. It didn't work out so well. So I was like, well, what about if I try pushing blood up into my glands and then squeezing it and then firing it down the deep dorsal vein? That worked a little bit better. But I still wasn't quite encapsulating it. And then one night I was like, why don't I just sit here and take my fingers and I'll make like this, undulating circular motion, and I'll just continually push blood up into my glands and out that dorsal vein just to stimulate this circuit I've discovered. And that was when the magic started happening. That was so I'd started to see a little bit of potency. So I was getting encouraged because I knew I was on the right path, but I could tell it was so inefficient. But once I had started rolling my fingers up the spongiosum to push blood up into my glands, that's when my erectile potency just started going and going and going and going.
And then spongiosum, sorry, let me stop you right there so everyone knows. That's the bottom part. That's the
soft, squishy part that's around your urethra.
Okay. But if this is coming off your body, this would be the spongiosum part, and this would be like the top that's like you're looking down at, and this is like the underbelly, basically.
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
I knew as soon as you said spongiosum, I'm like, I know exactly what I could just tell. I knew instinctually what that was. So that's you're saying that undulating circular movement sends it up through the glands, the tip, then back down through these side veins. And then where does it go from there again?
It basically goes back into your heart. It goes back
out of the
into
picture.
the regular.
Oh, so it's just those three things. The bottom part, glands, straight down through those side dorsal veins.
Yeah, you're basically just stimulating a small portion of your vascular system. You're basically causing blood flow to speed up in one particular, area of branches within the vascular system, and your body's just kind of absorbing that, doing its own thing. You're basically doing targeted cardio, just targeted cardio. That's really all you're doing here.
Yeah.
But say if you have somebody engaging in aerobic exercise, living their best life, you have to remember that if you're exposing your entire body to higher levels of shear stress, and it's releasing clouds of these growth factors into the vascular system itself, you can basically cause the process to just explode. You can ramp up the efficiency of these exercises so much more. You could think of the Angion methods as a polisher to a good aerobic exercising.
Gotcha.
All you're doing is you're basically taking advantage of all the growth factors that get made throughout your body, throughout your vascular system, through general aerobic exercise, and then you're targeting it. Because whenever you cause shear stress through a vascular channel, you're increasing the receptor counts in that given area. You're allowing more growth factors to attach to these receptors that have formed, and you're able to speed up the process of the vascular growth within a small portion of the vascular tree. So I started experimenting with what I call the Angion method 3.0, and my potency just went through the roof, like super physiological woodies, waking up with morning wood every single day. I'm chubbed as hell. And you were mentioning earlier on how like proper hydration, a calm state, and then you wrap it, and that would be an example of a healthy lifestyle. You're keeping your stress levels low, you're staying hydrated. That's a healthy lifestyle. The NGM methods are just an addition to that healthy lifestyle. They're a way to make that a little bit more productive for you. So I'm not just waking up with these great morning woods. I'm staying like heavily chubbed throughout the day. I looks like some fucking little like arm holding goddamn apple, man. I'm fucking chubbed. I'm feeling great. I'm on fire.
Dude, how happy were you when you figured this? This must have been crazy.
Oh my God. I was past the moon happy. I wanted to shout this from the rooftops, which I tried to do on or on YouTube first. I have a YouTube channel there, and then I was like, I got to get this out. I've got to I've got to let guys know that, you don't got to take an injection. You don't got to take a pill in order to get your potency back. And so I started seeing a return. I started seeing a return to the potency that I had lost from all of these, terrible PE exercises that I engaged in over time, all these different experiments that I put myself through. I was, oh my God, thank God. I finally have my manhood back. I can finally be that two pump chump if I want to. I
I mean,
can be
that's
that two pump
amazing.
chump.
That's
Dude,
amazing. You
like,
went that deep into it. Literally, I mean, it's like you lost it, dude. And then you somehow resuscitated it back bigger, better than ever. I mean, bro, what a few could do that. That's amazing.
one of my subscribers calls me the wounded healer. I had
Exactly.
I had to get wounded first to figure out how to heal other people.
It's the hero's journey. You got the hero's. I was literally just talking about this today. You got the hero's wound, and it literally gave you the knowledge to give to the world, which is crazy, dude. So
Yeah, and that's
so where are you at now with this? What do you do? Do you have like a device? Like what do you do? And did you
yes.
patent this thing, by the way? Like what do you
It's kind of hard to patent it because it's considered to be just a generic peristaltic pump, but I've got that big ass thing. Got like a
bro?
mill there. Got lathes behind me over here. Like I've got basically a whole, machine shop for like working plastic and stuff. So you're asking like, what did I do with that? Um, I actually got talking about some of the stuff with a good buddy of mine, someone who knew about my journey and whatnot, and was kind of going through similar struggles. And he was like, "Why don't you look up peristaltic pumps, man? Why don't you look up how those work?" And it was like the very first time I'd ever seen like a GIF of a peristaltic pump. It was that same fucking motion. It was the same shit I was doing with my fingers, but they were using rollers instead of fingers.
Oh,
I was like, oh my God, I've got to make this thing. I've got to make this. I have to make this. But at this point in time in my life, I was a researcher. I wasn't a craftsman. I fucking sucked at this shit, man. The first angio wheel I ever made, it was like this, like, like it was just shitty as hell, man. Like the cast reels are all wonky. The pieces of wood I was using were all like bowed and fucked up and shit. But I got to use it and I got to see what it could be. Because when I started experimenting with this, rough as it was, poorly crafted as it was, I started seeing my potency go up even more and even more and even more. And I was like, I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't in an entrepreneurial mindset. I was still in a researcher mindset. And then this guy, David, if you're watching this, I am forever going to be thankful for you. If you happen to watch this, I'm thankful for you. This economist up in Maine who had, quite a bit of money just kind of sitting around looking for something to do with it. He reached out to me through one of the forums I was a part of at the time, and he was like, "I will pay you to make this for me." And I hesitated. I was like, I'm not that good of a craftsman, man. I just made this thing. I have no experience making things. Like, I don't care. I want you to make this for me. You give me a figure north of like 150, I'll pay it right on the spot, just like that. I was like, I kind of sat on it for a while. I was like, I wasn't ever planning on making money on this. I was really big into trying to give it away to the world. I was really big on trying to give this answer because I know so many guys out there struggle with erectile dysfunction. I know the side effects of the drugs. I know the dangers. I know the hazards. So I wanted to give guys an alternative, a holistic alternative. There was this part inside of me that was wrestling with trying to monetize on this. I just didn't want to do it. And he was like, just do it, make me something. So I made him the second angio wheel I'd ever made, and I mailed it to him. And like he even asked me like sign it and autograph it and stuff like this. So I did.
awesome.
And And life kind of happened around that particular point in time. My mom got really sick around the same time. She got really, really sick, and we were having a really hard time paying medical bills and paying for like gas bills and stuff, just getting her back and forth in the hospital. And I had no other real options. I had graduated college. I had a bachelor's degree in sociology. The job market though is saturated. I had bunches of job interviews lined up. They were all falling through. I was like, I gotta figure out some way to make money now in order to get her through this rough time in her life. And so I started an Etsy, and I told the fan base I'd already built up on YouTube and Reddit about, hey, I'm gonna start selling this device, and it just took off like wildfire. The very first sale I ever ran, I made $8,300.
Awesome.
Yeah, just like right there on the spot. And I took the lion's share of that and I used it for my mom's medical bills and to get her to and from her doctor's appointments. But what I had left over, I started investing into machinery, into a proper shop. And as the money just kept rolling in, I just kept trying to invest more and more into it. And you kind of mentioned Trump, like stuff that happened. I actually made a posting on my subreddit about that not too long ago. I got my start under the Trump administration because of his business policies, because of how strong of a hand he put on, the economy in general. Food prices went down, gas prices went down. Business was booming, especially international trade. International trade was booming. What I discovered was I had an enormous fan base in Europe, specifically United Kingdom, Germany, France, Denmark, Sweden, stuff, places like that. And so a lot of the sales I was seeing were coming from overseas. That was a big bulk of the money I'd initially made. So I just kind of doubled down, and I'd never really done anything international before. So I had to do a lot of learning with that, but I started selling more and more, and I started getting better and better at making sales. Funny fact on that one, just real quick, just a quick little
Hmm.
blurb. I do a lot of goddamn business with California. I do a lot of
Really?
business with the porn industry. Oh my God, I do a lot of business.
Ah,
I have not shaken the hand of porn stars, but I have sent more than a few devices to studios. I've done that. Like no bullshit. Like
that's crazy.
yeah, I've had some porn stars reach out and be like, "Bro, you my man." I was like, "All right," because they're doing the drugs too. They don't
Yeah.
want to sit there and inject shit in their dick so they could do that scene. They just want to like go in there like a champ, be like, "All right, man, I can pump this out. I got this."
Yeah, that's
So yeah,
amazing.
so I started doing a lot of business with the porn industry out in California. That was the main thing. Like it was international sales, California. That was like the bulk of my sales,
That's
California and
crazy.
international sales. And then the rest of the states, started kind of coming in as my research, got off the ground, as people started word of mouth, talking about me and stuff. And I just gotten better and better. I started out making devices out of wood,
Mhm.
and wood's a great medium. Wood's cheap, but wood warps. Wood is prone to cracking. Wood is prone to all kinds of structural issues. So I was like, how can I do it better? And so I started doing plastic. And sorry, I
Oh,
kind of got
wow.
my baby girl's crib right there because we're kind of remodeling
Yep,
upstairs.
yep.
But can you see that big ass white thing in the corner there?
Yeah, what is that?
So that is half of a 500-pound slab of plastic.
What?
Yeah, an 8 foot by 4 foot slab of plastic. I will buy plastic like rod stock and plate in big ass bulk numbers. And so that way I can offer guys a reasonable rate. Because, like, I mean, yeah, I'm a businessman. And yes, I need to make money at the end of the day because I also got a family. I've got,
Sure.
I've got 2 kids, and my wife probably doesn't want me to say this, but I got a third one on the way.
God damn, dude. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you. So
amazing, bro. That's awesome.
yeah, so I mean I have to make money, but I also want to make sure that I don't price out the average Joes, the
Right.
people, the working man who wants to come home after a long day's work and be able to make love to his wife. I don't want to price them out. So what I'll do is I'll buy as much in quantity as I possibly can so I can keep my prices low. If I were to try to make, so right now I sell an Angie wheel for 254.99, which I know that's still up there, but I'm not able to buy as much of in bulk to get that price lower. I'm working on that, but say if I were to try to buy slab on demand, to try to to get angio wheels out the door faster, I'd almost double the price. I'd price out the average Joe.
Right. Right.
So what I'll do is I'll do a lead time of anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. Like say if a customer places an order, it's going to be mailed to them about 6 to 8 weeks later, because what I'll do is I'll get a run on orders to pay for the materials.
Right.
So that way we can lower the prices for everybody across the board. I try to make it as in reach of the common man as I possibly can. Um, so now here comes the curveball. So here comes the curveball. I was explaining all of this stuff. Yeah, and looking over the questions that you sent towards me. Um, so I'm gaining my potency back. I'm coming back to where I was as a man. I'm starting to feel confident in myself. But something else is happening too, which I did not expect. Because by this point in time in my life, I'd given up trying to get a bigger member. I'd
Mhm.
given up that approach. I'd given up that pursuit. But I'm waking up and I'm like, damn. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm going like, damn. And and I'm kind of like reaching down and feeling it. I was like, man, it must be in my head. That feels an awful lot thicker than it did a little while ago. But I ignored it. I pushed it back. I was like, no, no way, no way. But man, after a while, after I started kind of feeling it was getting all like fat and chubby, I was like, man, I gotta start taking like a tape measure to this shit and a ruler. And
True.
I'm like, holy fucking shit, my dick is literally getting bigger right now. Holy fucking shit.
Oh my God.
So finding the holistic approach, finding out how to heal myself, I inadvertently figured out how to cause penile growth. I inadvertently figured out how to cause what I call phallogenesis. Phallogenesis is basically arteriogenesis that's happening within the corporeal bodies, that's happening in the male member itself. It's just targeted arteriogenesis without intending to do that. I had inadvertently discovered how to grow the male member. That was never my pursuit, but that is precisely what happened.
That's crazy, dude. And it makes sense. It makes sense on a level that's like, you're talking about into like evolutionary history, the leaving the male body, studying the female body, the motion they're making, it all makes sense that there'd be a biological payoff for, a woman to get orgasm because therefore they can have a kid. And there's like this corresponding change. Because if you do cardio, there's a corresponding change. If a woman's constantly, bucking her little self on you. And dude, that's like kind of hearsay. I've talked to a lot of guys who are like, when you're having sex a lot, it just gets bigger. And I've heard that before, and I think that's true. And I don't know
It
if,
is.
again, like if it's in your head, you're like, dude, this is happening all the time. I'm just so you think like you're the king of the world anyway, but it's like it's true. I've talked to people about that before, and I'm like, dude, there is something to be said for that.
Right, and it does it like even this far along. There's still stuff that just blows my mind. Like I try to stay humble with it as possible because I know where I came from. I came from a guy that wishes he could have been the 2 pump chump, and now I'm now I'm hung. I
It's crazy. Not bragging. It just is what it is.
I'm like, this is humble bragging. I'm like, I'm hitting that back wall now. Like me and that back wall, we're tight.
That's
But,
crazy.
And see, at first I was kind of leery to say this because I was like, I feel like if I say this, I'm going to detract from like the holistic approach. I'm going to get guys who are going to be like, oh, let's go. They're gonna go at it with the wrong spirit. They're gonna go at it kind of like you see in gyms, to where instead of pursuing it as like to gain strength and to say do your job better. Say you're like a manual laborer, and you want to be able to lift like those bags of concrete or soil, or like just various products for like shelving stuff. Like your average stocker at Walmart. Instead of going at it from that mindset, you get guys to be like, I'm just trying to get swole as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little leery about that, but then I started getting, from the sales I'm making from these angio wheels, I'm trying to stay in contact with my customers over time. I'm trying to build a rapport with my customers. I'm trying to build a long-term relationship with them. So I'm leaving the door open and be like, hey, if you notice something, let me know. If there's something about the device you don't like, tell me about it. Maybe I can sit there and I can improve upon it. I'm trying to leave the communication channels open, and I'm getting these guys that are coming back to me and saying like, dude, I'm bigger. Like I'm for real bigger. I'm sitting there and I'm checking. I'm getting bigger. And after enough guys came back to me about this, I was like, I don't advertise the angio wheel as having that effect, like on places like Etsy or something where I
Sure.
sell. Places like YouTube, places like my subreddit, I let guys know. So coming back to that questionnaire you'd sent over, Uh, I have not figured out a way to parse what kind of growth happens, like whether you're growing in girth, you're growing in length. I haven't figured out how to parse those two. The best answer I can give is that the growth appears to occur based on a male's genetics. If they're more predisposed to gaining girth, they're going to gain girth. If they're more predisposed to gaining length, they're going to gain length. Now, what I can tell you about the process is that growth typically shows up first, then length. Now, like I was saying, with genetics, that ratio is going to change a little bit based on your genetics, but on the whole, girth is going to go up first, then length, and it's got to be because of how the vascular tree is growing, how it's so whenever this arteriogenesis is happening, whenever smooth muscles are doing that migration I was telling you about, it's breaking down collagen. It's breaking down fascia. Fascia is made of collagen. So it's causing a remodeling. So I had mentioned this on Patreon a while back. So like what you'll notice as you get into angio wheel training is that you just get fat. Like before you actually start to get longer, like you just get fat, man. It feels like you're holding on to like a chode or something. And it'll actually foreshorten a little bit, which will kind of fuck with you. Like your member will actually get a little bit shorter. But holy fuck, does it get fatter, man? You're just like, oh, and you just want
Damn.
to sit there and shake that shit in front of a mirror. It'll get like really squatty and fat, but like super chub. Like it's shorter, but damn, does it look impressive when you're standing in front of that mirror? You're like, oh, all right.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And then as that remodeling process starts to finish up, you'll start to notice that length comes back again. And whenever you start checking that ruler, you're actually going to find out that you've actually gone up a little bit. You've actually gone up a tick or two after that remodeling process has started to finish, and then it'll restart. It kind of goes through these cycles.
Mm.
Sorry, that dip I put in is really ripping. You'll get really squatty, but really heavily chubbed. And then as the remodeling process starts to wrap up, you'll stay a little bit thicker. Okay, like I said, you're going to gain that girth, but then you'll start to notice the length will increase. And I have I have spent the past 4 years, I'd say honest to God, 3 years trying to parse that out.
Right.
And So I started with the angiogram methods and angio wheel, kind of what we've been talking about now. But I really wanted to try and figure out a way to enhance that process, to take what I had known a step further, even further than I had already gone before. And gotta hit a wall with that big ass wall. And then I I don't know about you, but I'm like a martial arts movie fan. Like Bruce
Mm.
Lee, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, like whoa,
Yeah, yeah.
I love those. And growing up, I'd always sat there and watched, like, those type of movies like, Enter the Dragon, Unleashed with Jet Li. That's one of my favorites. Drunken Boxing, Showdown in Little Tokyo with, Jackie Chan. So I had this like deep appreciation for martial arts. And there's this one move, I can't remember the movie. Really wish I wasn't blanking on the movie. This like old martial arts master, this fucking soldier looking dude walks up to him, about ready to fuck this old guy, shit up. Like he's about ready to like go to like this dude is dead. Like you're looking at this big guy approaching this little hobbled old man. And the dude goes to swing, and this old man does like this weird hand gesture, like blah 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 blah, like walks these motions up his arm, and then the guy goes, oh, like holds his
Yeah,
chest for a
yeah.
second, and then just falls back and dies. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? What is that? What just happened there? And I found some like loose little articles on the internet, and it was this thing called iron palm. It's called iron palm. So what iron palm is it's a study of martial arts that has to do with fluid displacement. It's about using a person's vascular system against them. It's about using the flow of blood through a person's body against them. It's about so so like an iron palm master, like a if you like an iron palm master, you can't actually defend against them. You can't defend against their attacks, because what they'll do is they'll get a hand on you and they'll try to get a feel for your heart rate, and then they'll sit there and they'll punch your body based on the rhythm of your heartbeat, in order to basically fire blood into the central cavity of your body to cause internal organ damage.
Jesus, man. That's
Yeah,
real?
yeah, that's real. That's
What?
real. There's a move in martial arts that is actually inspired from iron palm. It's called the touch of death. So basically, after after an iron palm master has sat there and fired enough blood from your limbs into the central masses of your body, your organs are basically bleeding. It's basically causing like your capillaries to rupture. It's causing like blood to pool in your internal cavities. What they'll do is they'll kind of put this finishing move to where they'll almost like gently set their hand on you to just finish that last bit of compression of firing the blood into your central cavity, and they'll pretty much will cause organ failure. And it's like the person just falls over and dies. And I don't know if your subscribers would be able to look it up. You'd probably be able to find it. There was this iron palm master back around like the World War II era. He got called out on a sailor's vessel, like show us this move, whatever. And they pull out one of these prize stallions that they had on board. He was like, kill that horse. Like, let's see this shit. Kill that horse. And the guy, based on the story, he sets his hand on the flank of this horse, which was him feeling the horse's heartbeat, getting a feel for its rhythm. And then just as he feels the blood flow come up, as he feels the surge, he presses it down really fast. And at first nothing happens, like nothing's going on. And all of a sudden the horse starts to wheeze really bad. And then it falls down on its front legs, and then it just falls over and dies. And whenever they did an autopsy, they found that it had a bleed in its abdominal cavity. It basically bled out inside of itself.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I learned about this and I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. That's a totally cool ass subject. Don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with that.
Yeah, true.
Right. It's like sometimes you'll come across shit in research. It's like, okay, so I came up with this cool thing. Now, what the hell do I do with it? And I got thinking, I was like, well, wait a minute. So you've got these cavernossal chambers. And what's interesting, so have you ever heard the joke? You ever heard the joke that a man has one more bone in his body than a woman except during sex. You ever heard that joke?
I have heard something about that. I forget exactly. Oh yeah, obviously because it's in her body. Yeah, got you.
Right.
I have heard something like that. It always like went like I heard it in passing.
So like the joke is that the male member is, a bone. It's your bone.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, funny enough, that little joke is actually true. It's actually true. So the male member is actually a bone. When we look at primates, when we look at, apes and stuff like that, they don't actually have they don't have sexual organs like us. They have a bone. They have a penile bone. And it's been through adaptation, evolution that the human sexual organs, they're no longer calcifying, but they still have the same structure as a spongy bone. The male member, based on the research, based on everything I've studied, the best way to describe it is a partially differentiated, non-calcified spongy bone. It has all of the same structures as spongy bone, but because it's not calcified, it's able to be subjected to fluid displacement. That's how my research works. You're causing fluid displacement, which is causing shear stress. So I was like, well, that means that if I were to say strike the side of my corporeal bodies, I'm causing blood to be pushed out of a set area, and I'm causing blood to be pushed into the surrounding corporeal chamber into what they call the lacunae. Spongy bone has lacunae. It has like interconnected cave-like spaces, which the male member effectively has. So I started trying to experiment with how to strike along the sides of the corpora cavernosum to cause deep tissue fluid displacement, which causes deep tissue shear stress. And the end results is basically just like a woody of your dreams, like just insane hardness, insane fullness. So I was basically able to add an additional step to my work, but I have not been able to figure out how to mechanically practically apply that yet. But what
Right.
guys can do basically is they can sit there and they can use their thumb, like this portion of the thumb, to bat up against the side of their chambers to cause that fluid displacement. And you end up with like a really, really thick vasopump at the end of your sessions. And when you're waking up the next morning, I mean, it's like,
Jesus. And
oh.
you're talking both sides, just kind of like
Well, what you want to do is you want to lay your member in your hand so you've got a support, and then you sit there and you just rhythmically tap up and down one side, then you switch hands and you do it to the other.
Okay.
And it causes that deep tissue fluid displacement, which causes that shear stress inside the cavernossal bodies, which kickstarts arteriogenesis, and since it's that targeted area, allogenesis. It's an additional step. Now, guys can't just do that exercise. It's not standalone like the Angion methods or AngioWheel. It's sort of a polisher to your session to enhance the work that you've done. Uh, I don't really know an equivalent bodybuilding way of describing that, but basically, it's a way to polish out your sessions, make them a bit better.
It's a foam roller.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Kind of
very
is, yeah.
good. Yeah, it'd be like foam rolling at the end of a session. Yeah, perfect. And I've been spending a lot of money trying to figure out how to mechanically practically apply that, coming up with crazy different designs. And yeah, of course, making it easier to make the angio wheel and stuff like that. I can't think of. Is there any other additional questions
First
you
of
have? 'Cause I
all,
know I rambled a lot. I know I
no,
have.
that blew me away. That was beyond. I mean, again, I didn't know how in depth all of this was, and like, it was phenomenal. Honestly, I'm blown away. My question that I have is, with all of this stuff you're saying, all this blood flow, what is masturbation doing? Does it reduce size? Does it not affect? Is it like, what does it do?
That, oh man, I'd forgotten about that one, and that's that's
It's a
man, that's
hot
a
topic.
ball.
If you don't want to answer, I understand, 'cause you might have a lot of
No,
people.
no, I do. No, I do. The problem is it's just so sad. It's so sad. So what masturbation will eventually cause, so like masturbation tends to go hand in hand with porn addiction,
Sure.
with what they call porn masturbation orgasm, PMO cycle.
Mm.
What will happen with that is that the muscles in your groin, after being overworked, because like your muscles have to kind of compress ever so slightly to help maintain your erections. That's just a natural part of the hemodynamics. So basically, the hydraulics of the male sexual organs. Whenever guys say beat off the orgasm, what's effectively happened is you've got like this electrical storm that's happened inside your brain. You're getting that feel good high afterwards. You're like, like you feel great. But neurologically, on a neural level, that feel good sensation is very loud. Neurologically, it's very loud. And your body will try to protect itself against that afterwards. It will release a set of chemicals and hormones that will pretty much will tone down that. It's what's called the Coolidge effect. It's there's another name for it. I can't think of it, but basically, you know how after your orgasm, you have such a difficult time getting an erection again for a while, right? So that's your brain basically trying to tone things down and protect itself. So what a guy has to do in order to try and get past that protection that their brain has basically put in place to try and, keep it from being injured from this intense experience is, of course, they have to watch a video that's even more intense. Like, I don't know, they'd have to like watch a video like some guys licking some girl's butthole or something like that, just to,
Yeah, yeah,
just like they got to like step it up to an additional level.
exactly.
And then on top of that, they're not getting quite as much blood flow to their sexual organs as they would before, because neurologically your body's trying to ramp that down, trying to keep that stimulation from happening again, because it's very loud neurologically. So what guys will do is they'll have to tighten down their pelvic floor even more to try and take advantage of that reduced blood flow a little bit, so that way they can get hard again. And then, of course, they'll beat off orgasm, and then they'll just do that over and over again. And what will happen is that the pelvic floor will develop an overuse injury. Your muscles, after being overused so often, they'll begin to actually get weaker. They'll begin to foreshorten. They'll get tighter. And so you end up with these men that are walking around with chronic pelvic floor pain. But it's even more insidious than that. What these muscles will do as they foreshorten is they cause strangulation. They cause strangulation on the corporal bodies themselves, because they're getting smaller and weaker and twitchier. They're basically keeping your cavernousal bodies from expanding to their full size. They're throttling it. They're choking down on them. And so what will happen over time is that a guy will experience thinning. Their member will get progressively thinner over time as those muscles get smaller and weaker. And they also have a harder time developing blood flow. From my end of things, what I see is one of the first things that guys begin to notice is that their spongiosum gets less and less full, and then their glands will get very shriveled because it's their body choking down. The cavernosal bodies themselves will initially be able to protect themselves because there's so much pressure inside there. They don't notice it right away, but the spongiosum, a lot less pressure, it starts to get thinner and thinner. The glands start to shrivel, and you end up with like what's basically pencil dick, to where guys have shrank themselves from pursuing that orgasm so frequently, causing that damage to their pelvic floor muscles.
Damn.
And yeah, and on top of that, because those muscles are pressing down so hard, they lose sensitivity. On top of that, it actually causes nerve strangulation to some effect. And I've seen it taken so far to where guys have actually caused nerve damage to where uh, the Angion methods can help restore some nerve function, I've discovered over time. Because it's restoring blood flow, it can resaturate those nerves. And interesting fact, vascular endothelial growth factor, VEGF, the thing that endothelial cells produce, it also has an additional effect on nerve cells. It causes nerve cells to grow. So as the vascular channel grows, we do see a restoration of sensitivity. Some guys will actually kind of complain about it. They'll be like, "Man, I've become a two-pump chump. I can't last long because it feels so good. I can actually feel more of what's happening here." But yeah, masturbation tends to thin it. And the other thing that happens is curvature.
Mm.
Curvature is another thing that happens. So if you're masturbating with your left hand, your fingers are dragging really hard on your right chamber, and that's causing a progressive amount of damage. That's causing a fiber layer to form. And so if someone's masturbating with their left hand, they're going to end up with a rightward lean over time. Their member's going to start leaning to the right. And of course, with the right hand, it's going to be a left hand lean. And the other thing that comes in here is that since guys are less sensitive, they've got to squeeze harder. It's what they call death grip syndrome. They've got to really squeeze down in their members super hard to feel anything. And you end up with all kinds of injuries that happen with that too. You end up with vascular trauma, varicose veins, because they've got to sit there and almost do a gel-like motion just to keep that fullness, and it can snowball from there. So if you're asking me, can masturbation cause a loss of size, a loss of functionality? Can it cause damage? The answer is 100% yes. One of the things I
Damn.
tell guys whenever they're engaging in this program is, hey, if you want to actually see a benefit in this, if you want to, if not just restoring potency, but if you'd like to see size, you can't masturbate in a normal fashion. What I tell guys is, why don't you rely on the hand exercises? Why don't you use the hand exercise as a form of masturbation instead of the usual? Because I found that the usual method of masturbation, it tends to cause those effects, but these newer techniques that have come up with, they don't have that same effect. They don't have the same ramifications. So it is a hot topic, and it's just painful for me to have to talk about it because wounded healer again. I
Yeah.
went through all
Yeah.
I went through all that. I remember how that felt, and to drop that bomb on guys, it's hard. You
Yeah.
know, it's really hard, and because some of them are so addicted to porn that they can't get themselves out of that cycle, and so they could struggle with it for months, sometimes years.
It's a very
So
touchy subject because I've tried and I've actually had a lot of success in Texas. You like can't even really look at Pornhub. You have to use your ID. And like, dude, everyone's like complaining. I'm like, this is exactly what I needed. This is awesome. It does prevent me a lot. So I've had success with like getting off of it a lot, but dude, it's such a supercharged topic. Because you get some people who are like, don't ever look at it ever in your life. And you have some people who are like, oh, what's the big deal? Indulge yourself. There's doctors like, it's good for you. Do it twice a day and it'll make you calm.
Right.
It'll make you calmer and more relaxed. So it's a hot topic. I mean, look, stuff to think about. It's stuff to think about. And, I lean on the side where like, yeah, definitely less is more with that. If you're just cranking, especially when you get to the point like you're saying, it's a psychological addiction. You're like doing it when you don't even feel like it necessarily. It's just like, I just need to do this to fall asleep or whatever.
Right.
And that can be tough stuff. But knowing that it definitely can. It makes sense that
Yeah.
it would fuck with you.
And you remember how you were saying how like guys who have a lot of sex, like they're definitely getting bigger. And the reason for that is it's a different form of stimulation. So what a lot of guys will do whenever they're masturbating is they do a jelk-like motion. They're pulling up. They're trying to move blood against the normal pathways, the normal flow in order to try to maintain that fullness, which is one of the reasons why there's not there's not carryover. Like if a guy's having an awful lot of sex, I mean, he might be awfully dead tired by the end of the night, but he's not subjecting his sexual organs to the same kind of stimulation as he would to masturbation. So what I always tell guys is, like if you're horny, man, go find a girlfriend. Go get yourself a girlfriend. Clean yourself up a little bit. Go get you someone.
Yeah.
Don't sit there, wanking it in your hand. Go find yourself a girl. There are plenty of lonely women out there that'll be more than happy to help you if you're willing to help them.
Yeah, true. It's true. Another hot topic. But yeah, man, I mean, that's brutal reality. And then, if it's like if you're, but I get it. I mean, all guys, again, this is another topic. If you bring up beating off, every dude, if someone's gonna be like, it's like, yeah, all right, dude, you probably do it the most. Everyone does it. We all do it. It's obviously a crutch for all of us.
Oh
But
yeah, I'm not sitting here like some kind of a saint saying I don't do it on
look,
occasion.
I know you're not. I know you're not. But then again, this is an absolute sensitive subject. But it's like, the truth doesn't always come the way we want it. If and people can push back, blah blah blah. But it does make sense, especially with what you're saying. Like it's not like it's not the way it was designed. Obviously, it's a quick fix. But either way, dude, that's pretty much all I have. I mean, I just want to thank you. I think you did phenomenally. Thank you for staying up. I know you have, little kids, as do I. Sleep is definitely a precious commodity.
Yeah. It's the only thing that keeps me up, man. Nicotine and caffeine. I swear, if someone cut me open, I just spew out C4 and like Copenhagen. I swear
Dude,
to God.
I saw a grandmom get onto a plane one time and she had a sweatshirt that said, "I run on kisses and caffeine." And I was like, you like laugh at that. But now I have kids. I'm like, dude, it's so fucking true.
Oh, I know. As a single guy, like all the bullshit you hear about with family is like can't relate, can't relate. And then you have kids, you're like, I get it now. 100%. It's the whole mindset, man.
Really is. Well,
Yeah.
dude, thank you so much. I'll link all of your stuff. The Etsy. I'll link it in the description. All that stuff. I think it's fascinating. I'm obviously going to get one for sure. So I'll be preaching the gospel and I'll keep people preaching the good word of your device, and I'll try it on myself. It makes sense, dude. I can't think of I'm trying to think of like a critical. Well, what about? But dude, it just makes too much sense, honestly.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. Look forward to your business, and thank you again for having me on. It's Matt. It's been a pleasure. It's been
Dude,
an
it's
absolute.
pleasure's all here. You're an absolute certified master. You're the only one who knows the answer to the question every dude thinks about all the time.
Yeah, that's yeah. I know. I think about that daily. It's trippy. It's still trippy to me. Still trippy.
Thank you, brother. Is there anything you want to put? Like, do you want to say like where your Reddit is or any of this other stuff? Like,
Uh, and our Angion method on Reddit, and if you're ever on Joe Rogan again, mention me to Joe Rogan. I think Joe Rogan is an awesome, awesome dude. I fell in love with him on Fear Factor, and it's just been a love ever since I found his podcast. I actually saw you on there. I was watching that segment where you guys were talking. I can't remember the name of it, but it was you and is it your friend Shane?
Shane, yeah,
Is that
Shane Gillis, yeah.
Yeah, you three were like sitting there talking about MMA stuff and whatnot. I was like, it looked like a lot of fun.
He's a blast. He's the man. And dude, who knows? Maybe his eyes will fall upon this. It'll be I'm really excited to see what people think about it. But dude, thank you so much. And good luck with everything. Good luck, the kids, all that stuff. God bless you, dude. Thank you so much.
Yep. I'm gonna get myself to bed. I got an early rise, so you take care.
Dude, thank you. Me too. See you, bro.